Hello my dear friends, welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. So today, following the end of Star Wars Celebration, we do have some pretty big updates on the Star Wars movie front. And we're going to begin with The Mandalorian Season 4. Not the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming May 22nd, 2026, but Season 4 of the TV show. Is it gonna return? Lucasfilm has finally addressed it. You know, over the last couple of days, I've been seeing how fans have been reacting to some of the footage of The Mandalorian and Grogu, some of the conversations that have been happening online. There is recurring disappointment. People are saying it just feels like an extended episode of The Mandalorian TV show. I've even seen fans say it feels like a filler episode for the big screen. Just a Mando side mission glorified as a movie. And my response is, well, I'm not really surprised. From the very first rumours which I covered probably a year ago, we were told this movie was going to be very self-contained. It's not the endgame of the Mandoverse. This isn't Dave Filoni's movie. It's not an Heir to the Empire adaptation. It doesn't have the scale to deal with Ahsoka, Luke, Thrawn, other players during this time. The plot is very straightforward, very straight to the point, and it's being marketed as very surface level. It's a fun adventure movie, and to be honest, if you see it that way, then you're not going to be as disappointed. Because there has been a lot of confusion and, like I say, a bit of a simultaneous sigh from the fandom. As Jon Favreau says in some of the interviews we're about to cover, this is a movie for the general audience to test the waters and get Star Wars back on the big screen. Based on the way this movie performs, there might be a Mando trilogy that comes out, but it really is an experiment. It's a movie they know Mando fans will absolutely pay to see, but they want to get a general sense of how much the wider audience actually cares. As Jon Favreau says, Mando and Grogu are very distinctive, very recognizable, and they want to lure in fans who maybe didn't see the TV show, but want an entry point. So it might not be very deep on lore, and it might not do very much in terms of moving the story forward to something bigger. It could just be a side quest, but for the big screen, in between seasons 3 and 4. Another big reason some fans have been saying this really sucks is because they want the show to return to the quality of the first 2 seasons. They were the gold standard. They set the bar. So when the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian's 3rd season were considered disappointments, the Mando movie was a new beacon of hope. This is where they can return to that greatness. But Jon Favreau doesn't seem to be interested in, quote, returning to the show's roots. He wants to evolve it to something different, and for him, that means something jovial and something silly. The Mandalorian and Grogu is not going to be very deep. I will say that. It's a bit of an experimental movie. They're going to do things which lean on the comedic, the absurd, and they're trying to do much more with visual effects. So returning to the space western lone bounty hunter with his adopted son isn't really what they're going for. Jon Favreau wants to evolve the Mandalorian, and that means changes for both Din and Grogu. In the trailer, Grogu swims, he takes out a mouse droid, and even says the word okay. And Sigourney Weaver teased he's grown a bit. And Grogu isn't the only one. Now the Mandalore has been restored. Is there a loosening of the orthodoxy concerning the Children of the Watch? I say this because we know Pedro Pascal was in the suit. As was showcased at Star Wars Celebration, I think he's gonna have some scenes without his helmet. But now let's get on to some of Jon Favreau's latest comments. One of the big questions he was asked is, will the Mandalorian TV show return to Disney Plus after the film is done? He doesn't know. I don't even think Lucasfilm knows, or is going to make any kind of decision until the box office numbers come in. That's going to determine everything, because Lucasfilm's in a very strange position. They want to bring Star Wars back to the big screen, but they don't have any kind of predictions or certain trajectory of how that's going to go. They're going to have to look at the numbers and the stats when they drop, the box office versus the budget. If it turns a good profit, they can make a decision then. And I've got a bit of a theory. The Mandalorian and Grogu script is not the same as the Mandalorian Season 4 script that Jon Favreau said he wrote back in 2023. I reckon he took one of those ideas and extended it to be a film. I think there's still plenty more meat on the bone, but like I say, it all depends on the performance of the movie, and Jon is very happy to focus on the big screen. He was also asked about the runtime. He kind of teases it's rather lean. They're still cutting it together, they're still doing visual effects, so he doesn't know. But it definitely isn't going to drag. So don't expect a 3-hour Mando movie. That isn't what this is. So then, Jon Favreau expressed one of his concerns. He's worried there are going to be spoilers in the merch and the toys before the movie is out. He acknowledges it's a fine balance. You want fans to be excited. You want fans to be able to pick up some t-shirts and some figures, but he also doesn't want those to spoil anything ahead of time. Apparently there are some big reveals, and I imagine he's talking about Rota, Embo, Probably not the return of Moff Gideon, but hey, you never know. Now speaking of Embo, Jon Favreau gave us a big reveal. Dave Filoni is in the movie. Now this can mean two things, either Embo, because he voiced him in the Clone Wars, or Trapper Wolf. It could be both. He's appeared in every season. He was in Chapter 6, The Prisoner, Chapter 10, The Passenger, Chapters 21 and 24 as well. He was on Adelphi base, and that is where the bulk of The Mandalorian and Grogu is set. Another big question Jon Favreau was asked, is The Mandalorian and Grogu going to have a traditional Star Wars opening crawl? He seems to suggest the answer is yes, and I say this because he said no comment. That usually means yes. Also, a couple of years ago, Kathleen Kennedy did say she wants to bring back the opening crawl for every upcoming Star Wars film. So those are the big updates on the Mando front, but we do have some other Star Wars movie news. Taika Waititi's movie is going ahead. For once we have a definitive update. We now know the co-writer is Tony McNamara, the writer of Poor Things. At Star Wars Celebration, Kathleen Kennedy promised the movie is still going ahead. But now that there's a co-writer and things are moving along, yet another movie might come before the Rey movie. Neither Daisy Ridley nor Sharmino Bay-Chinoy were present in Japan, and we didn't have any word about it. Yet The Mandalorian and Grogu, Sean Levy's Star Wars Starfighter, and now Taika Waititi's untitled movie are coming first. I personally have so much hope for Star Wars Starfighter, but when it comes to this, when it comes to Taika Waititi and comments about his movie, I'm very worried. It doesn't sound like he's taking it seriously. And there were rumblings his movie's going to be a Star Wars comedy. I just don't think this is it. I really don't think this is what Star Wars needs. Nonetheless, I'll give anything a shot. About a month ago, I made a video about the turning of the tide within Lucasfilm. Kathleen Kennedy isn't retiring, but she will step down from her current position. And with that, as well as other recent changes in management, there might be an alteration in the way Lucasfilm approaches future projects. As demonstrated from fan reactions over this last weekend, there was so much excitement for the Darth Maul show, Ahsoka Season 2, The Mandalorian and Grogu, things that had nothing to do with the sequel trilogy. And you might say, well, isn't the Sean Levy movie literally sequel era? It's 5 years after Episode 9. Well, yes, but the focus isn't Rey. You see, that's the difference. The association. Fans went berserk when Ryan Gosling stepped onto the stage. It's the promise of the unknown, new characters, and a plot we know nothing about. So as I predicted, even as far back as a year ago, the Rey movie may never go ahead. It seems like at every turn, Lucasfilm is doing everything they can to push it off. That's basically what they're doing. The Sean Levy movie is filming this fall, The Mandalorian and Grogu comes out next year, the Taika Waititi movie now has a co-writer, almost every single movie aside from the Rey movie has a projected start date. But that said, my dear friends, those are all of today's updates. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you looking forward to The Mandalorian and Grogu? And do you think we're going to get The Mandalorian Season 4? If you enjoyed this one, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you, always.